welcome back.
Welcome to the Sports Degos with your hosts Sonny and Murph. We advise you to turn down your speakers and turn up your crap filters because it's gonna get loud and messy.
Just win, baby.
Just win, baby!
If I don't have to do all the crap I did this past Saturday as far as cut back and jump over somebody and stumble, I don't worry about getting caught, period.
On an unbelievable night, swung on, there's a high drive, hit way back, and it's Teddy accepted a victory for the Oakland Athletics.
And laughed when he's conquered and won.
We got some physical players on our team. That's the way you have to play to win, and that's the way we play.
Get fired up, I ain't playing. I'm telling you, get fired up. Stand up, get out of that chair, moron. It's time for the Degos. That's right, Murph and Sonny from the Dego Dungeon. You got it right here, live.
All right, check it out and welcome back to the Sports Degos. We are live in the Dego Dungeon once again for our record 20th show. We are here for our 20th show. We hope to stay on air like McFadden hopes to stay on the field. We may have to spin around a couple of times due to our stupid commentary, like Barry Sanders. My co-host Murph may have to come off the bench like Ginobili to hit the game-winning shot. But have this in mind. We will not mess up our opportunity in the pros like Mike Bibby. We will be like Ray Allen on the Celtics and drain the three when needed. We will speed around the base path like Lou Brock and have no fear. We will be forceful like Luke Robitaille if needed. Murph, welcome to the 20th show of the Degos. How are you, son?
I'm doing fantastic, Sonny. Thank you for asking. And clearly, we are the most famous of 20s, much more so than all those. I don't know who half those guys were that you named. No, I'm kidding. But no, it is great to be here, back in the Dego Dungeon for the 20th time. Although it could have been the 21st time. But last week, we were stricken by illness. Yes, Sonny, even the sports Degos are human and susceptible to viruses. And I'm glad to have you back in the land of the living. Glad to have you back and healthy and hosting the Sports Dego, sir.
No one is safe from the flu, Murph, and I was a little sick last week, Murph. I was a little under the weather. I apologize to our tens and tens of listeners that were unable to hang out with us last week because I was under the weather, Murph. You know, I thought I had the cold, and then you start getting the body aches, and then you start just being, you walk around, you go to the refrigerator and see if you have any cheese and salami, and you get tired, you know what I'm saying? So it was asleep for 4 days, tried to go to work, couldn't do it, but Murph, I'm back in the Dego Dungeon. I couldn't be happier. The NBA Finals are here. The Oakland Athletics are in first place in baseball, and Donaldson still is not on the All-Star ballot.
Ridiculous that Josh Donaldson, the bringer of rain, is not on there. And especially, man, how nice was that him hitting that grand slam the other night. And Josh Reddick catching that ball at the fence to preserve the A's win. I know they lost today, but they have been on an absolute roll against the Chicago White Sox. And as you mentioned, are in first place. It's a good time to be an Oakland A's fan.
It's a great time to be an Oakland A's fan. It's always a great time to be a fan of Oakland sports. It's always a great day, Murph, to be a sports fan, to have that break in the action, to either ooh and ah at the pro athletes, or to sit back and go, what a freaking knob. You know what I'm saying, Murph? Speaking of freaking knob, Speaking of, we're going to introduce a new segment in a little bit, Murph. But first, as always, we have a little competition between me and you. And Murph, that competition is as different as the length of our heights in centimeters. You're a big man. You're pretty tall. You'd go first on a lot of basketball teams. Me, I'd go first on, that game you used to play in recess where you lock arms and you call out somebody else and they have to try to run and try to bust through the line and stuff,
Red Rover, send Sonny on over.
Yes, that's what I would be good at. I'd go first in that game. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I can testify to your trucking ability based on 2 years ago our impromptu football game played in the what was it, the Town Place Suites, the Marriott property there in outside San Jose, California, when we decided after like one or two beers decided to have an impromptu football game in the middle of the suite there.
Yes, one or two beers
and I lost. Apparently, old Murph and his lanky body is not too much for a goal line stand when I'm going up against a guy with a 99 truck.
I believe you lost. I believe the table lost. I believe many things.
Jimmy lost because Jimmy got woken up abruptly, and the man had to work the next day.
And he came out and yelled at us, and we said, "Shut up, Jimmy! Go back to sleep."
Shut up, Jimmy! Go back to sleep.
Anyway, without any further ado, welcome to the Beer Wars. Murph, what are you drinking?
Sonny, I've long been known to have lengthy descriptions of my beers. A lot of times it's because I tend to prefer lesser-known brews, and so I tend to get into these wordy descriptions to not only identify the product, but to try to draw a verbal picture, to try to draw something, a mental image, and to try to provide something for our listeners to latch onto for their virtual palate, let's say. Well, tonight I'm drinking a beer that doesn't have a lengthy description because it's not written anywhere on the six-pack container nor on the bottle, but I can testify to its lusciousness. It's a good beer. It's a delicious beer. It's a micro brew, and so micro in the fact that it's only brewed in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm talking about Blackstone Brewing Company, which is down on West End Avenue, which is right in between the Vanderbilt University campus and downtown Nashville. And so Blackstone obviously is only sold locally, and they got a few good beers. They got a good porter, they got a good nut brown ale. But they just released a seasonal beer, a summer seasonal, and after a couple of weeks ago having the Bombshell, which was the Newcastle, the light English ale that typically I gravitate towards the darker beers, but I wanted to do something light for summer, and man, it was so good that I thought, well, I'm going to go again with another light beer, another seasonal beer, and what better than to go with something that's brewed right down the road? So I went with the summer seasonal Picnic English style summer ale. So, Sonny, I'm going on a picnic tonight with the Sports Degos, and this stuff is fantastic. It's light, it's refreshing, and while it's still got a little bit of cloudiness and a little bit of weight to it, so it's not like drinking like a Budweiser or something. So it's still got a little bit of body behind it. But man, it's really good, and I'm really enjoying it. I just threw up a picture of it. In the spirit of the Oakland A's, I got my Oakland A's bobblehead doll up there. And I think that bobblehead's eyeballing my pint, if I'm not mistaken.
Kick its ass. Sorry.
Do what? Picnic. Blackstone Brewing Company, right down the road, West End, Nashville, Tennessee. Excellent stuff.
Murph, the studio audience always loves your beers. They love your descriptions even more. Murph, you are the captain of the lengthy description, and I would never, ever try to knock you off of your throne. But I get a sense that I need to sell my beer more. I'm not Mike Tyson. I can't just come walking in, I remember I used to come in to walk in the ring, shorts, gloves, fighting, right? Other guys would come in,
it's time for you to bite somebody's ear off.
Robes, they'd have all that stuff, So I'm going to go a little lengthy. I'm going to give you a little history lesson, Murph. And I'm glad you went with a beer localized out there in Tennessee, because anybody outside of Tennessee thinks all you guys got there is moonshine and stuff like that, right? So, 1979, Murph, probably the best year the world has ever seen. Not because I was born. Well, yes, because I was born. So, 1979, home brewing was legalized in Oregon. Legalized in Oregon, okay? You following me? You tracking? 1986, a Dublin pub creates a buzz. The owner of a Dublin pub, which carried the Alter Eber and Weizenbier and Jaeger to expand his offerings, asked the Winmere brothers to make a third beer for him. The brewery only had 2 fermenters at the time, so to save space and time, they simply left the Weizenbier unfiltered and impressively cloudy, thus creating the first American-style blank. Forging ahead, Murph, 1990, moving to North Portland. Kurt and Rob moved the brewery to its current location in North Portland and renamed the brewery Winmere Brothers Brewing Company. 2011, where are the Winmere Brothers today, you say? Today, the Oregon Brewers Festival is the largest outdoor craft beer festival in the country, drawing more than 70,000 attendees. To date, 31 recipes from the Collaborator Project have been chosen, with some winning national awards, including a golden medal at the Great American Beer Festival. Winmere Brothers history continues to write itself every day. And Murph, the beer that I'm drinking, a golden, unfiltered wheat beer that is truly cloudy and clearly superb. And ever since Winmere introduced blank to America in 1986, theirs has been the standard by which all other Hefeweizens are judged. Drinking a Hef, Murph. Drinking a Hef. You can't go wrong with it. You can't go wrong with it. Are you a fan of the Hef?
Yeah, I'm a fan of the wheat beers. What I'm not a fan of is you going all Wikipedia. Where the crap did you get that lengthy
Wikipedia. Wasn't Wikipedia. I went straight to the source. I sat down and had a beer with I went to the Winmere Brothers website. Can't go wrong. Can't go wrong.
No, some of those wheat beers, those Belgian wheat beers, those are Belgian style, anyways. Those are pretty good. I'm with you on that. But I'm gonna stick to my guns on this one. This is a pretty neck and neck. I'm curious to hear what the Twitterverse has to say. What our tens and tens of Sports Degos listeners have to say. Coming down between Blackstone Brewing Company's Picnic Seasonal Summer English Style Ale and Sonny's Hefeweizen.
So what are you drinking? Blackstone, what's it called?
It's Blackstone's Picnic English Style Summer Ale.
Blackstone's Picnic English Style Ale versus Winmere Brothers Hefeweizen. Murph, did you ever watch that movie Beer Wars?
Yes, I have. No.
Brewfest.
No, Beer Fest.
Beer Fest.
Beer Fest is absolutely hilarious. That's
the best part of that movie is when the Germans come over and they're making fun of the Americans, and they're like, "You don't smear enough ices in your Zimas" and stuff like that. I love that. All right, we're putting the retweet is for the Blackstones, and the favorite on Twitter is going to be for the Winmere Brothers. If you don't follow us, we are at the Sports Degos, TheSportsDegos, at the Sports Degos. check us out on our website, thesportsdegos.com, and soon to be on SB Nation and Bleacher Report, Murph. We're expanding our horizons. Now, Murph.
We're all about horizons.
All about horizons. Bring
Man,
me
that
the
Hefeweizen,
horizon.
that's a good-looking
Man.
bottle.
It's
I
a
just saw your
good-looking,
picture.
it's a good beer, man. I'm telling you. It's a
Looks
great
good.
beer.
That looks good. This might be closer than I think.
Murph, I got one favorite already. I'm beating you.
Oh, man, you're killing me.
J.R. Marquez. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate it. Murph, we're going to introduce a new segment tonight. We don't introduce new segments often because, frankly, we want to perfect the old segments before we bring in a new segment. You know what I'm saying? Stuff, you know? So it just makes sense. However, we've been thinking about this one long time. We've been thinking about how we could bring it to the audience, how we could address it, how we could, preface it, what could be the stem of it, how could we intro it and stuff like that. And we think we've hit it out of the park. We really do think that it's going to be a good segment.
Well, we spent a lot of time with the focus groups,
We did.
We consulted with the Sports Degos marketing department, and there was obviously a lengthy analysis of the next segment creation. It took almost two and a half minutes.
I'd say maybe 45 seconds.
Okay, I'm with you on that. I mean, you know what? I gotta give you credit. I gotta say that the best segments always come up organically, and the fact that you came up with a brand new segment for the show in 45 seconds, and it involved all those people and all those different facets of the widespread Sports Degos Corporation organization. Kudos to you, sir. What do we have on the table,
Murph? Every week, you get an example from the sports world of somebody who is so out to lunch, they still think they matter. They still think that their ability is better than the ability of many people who play the game. They still think that their athletic prowess is deserving of attention in the media, and when it's not, sometimes they do things to get attention for themselves. Murph, it is always told to a young man who is in pursuit of a woman, be confident, not cocky. You want to be confident of your abilities, because every woman loves a confident man, and a confident man gets places, whether it's business, sports, whatever. But a cocky man gets nowhere in life, Murph. So, for the first time ever, the Sports Degos are introducing Cock of the Week. This week, Murph, on COTW, none other than the Satan-calling man himself, Terrell Owens. Now, simply a few hours before the show happened, you sent me a tweet going, dude, are you checking this out? And apparently, Michael David Smith and the crew at Pro Football Talk wrote something about T.O. This is what they said. Realistically, there's almost no chance that Owens will play in the NFL again. It's been 2.5 years and one ACL tear since he last played in a regular season game, and he couldn't cut it in the Seahawks camp last year. Nothing derogatory, pretty straightforward, right? He continues. Throw in the fact that he has a reputation as a headache in the locker room, and it's hard to imagine why any team would want him around. Now, maybe you can say that's a little subjective, but you can't really argue with the fact that he has been a headache and all of that kind of stuff, right? So, what does Terrell Owens do? Does he sit back and let his athletic ability prove this guy wrong? No, Murph. He goes to Twitter, and he tweets at Pro Football Talk, I have the victory in the name of Jesus. Satan, parentheses, Pro Football Talk, is under my feet. I am not moved by adverse circumstances. He again tweets, they publish stuff that isn't true. They are just that. Their content and overall journalism is negative. He continues, I've admitted that I've made mistakes. No one is perfect. I've said that publicly, but people have deaf ears. Murph, was it fair for him to call him Satan?
Mike Florio is the one that came up with PFT, Pro Football Talk, back in 2001, and he's now been a feature on, Sunday Night Football, and him and Dan Patrick have a great relationship with each other, and it is frequented on that show, on Dan Patrick's show. I'm pretty sure Mike Florio's not Satan. Just saying. I mean, and for T.O., man, I don't know. This is it's just T.O. has had such a huge, long history of saying absolutely absurd, off-the-wall things, from accusing Jason Witten and Tony Romo of conspiring against him to reduce the amount of catches that he would get in a football game. I mean, T.O.'s come up with some doozies over his career. But, the fact that now the guy is obviously out of football, they presented an article that is very truthful and, like you said, straightforward. And it's not anything critical of T.O. It's just identifying
truth.
Really where it's truth. It's where he's at in his career. It's what happened over history. So for him to take, as a man of faith, I kind of take umbrage with somebody taking that and using that to leverage against someone else. Well, clearly it's not the fact. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like, come on, T.O. To compromise something like that for your own personal gain or opinion or whatever, it's pretty silly. It's pretty silly. It does it. He's never been shy on cockiness, and certainly not now. And T.O. is not going to play another down in the NFL, and he's long, long gone. And
Control yourself. Control yourself.
Fired up. I'm spitting already, Sonny.
You're getting all crazy with it.
It's got to be tongue-tied. That doesn't happen often. Stupid T.O.
Anyway, T.O., you're the cock of the week, baby. Dude, who says it? Isn't that Christopher Walken who says that? That's what you say. You're the cock of the week, baby. You're the cock of the week or something like that, right? On an old Saturday Night Live skit or something like that?
No, he's any more cowbell.
No, but I think he does do something
fever.
like that. No, but he does do something like you're the cock of the week, baby, or something like that. I don't know. I forget.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. We might have to introduce that soundbite.
All right, Murph. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back with Shut Your Fat Mouth and Big Stupid. You're listening to the Sports Degos.
Hey, you're listening to a podcast with Sonny and Murph. They'll make you a podcast poop.
Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph. All right, welcome back to the Sports Degos. You can find us on the interwebs at thesportsdegos.com. You can find us on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Please look at our tweets. Help us figure out who's drinking the better beer, Murph or Sonny. You can retweet for Murph, favorite for Sonny, and I think so far it's a dead heat. And Murph, we got a little flack. Guy kind of made fun of us, man. Guy said,
what did he do? What happened?
He said, by the looks of it, you're both sipping and not drinking. Lightweights. I said, geez, we just cracked them. Give us a couple seconds, huh?
Yeah, man. Give us 6 minutes into the show here, huh?
Give us a couple seconds. Okay, Murph. Every week, somebody runs their mouth. Every week, somebody just cannot keep that big mouth of theirs shut. And for that, we like to tell them to, shut their fat mouth. So, Murph, this week, who needs to shut it, huh?
Well, this was an easy one, and this actually went all the way back to last week's show, which unfortunately, due to sickness, we weren't able to get on the air, but the story continued on to this week. And, sometimes we'll have a player or someone else involved in the world of sports, whether it be Trey Wingo or, Jamarcus Russell or whoever it is, and they'll just say something silly. They'll say something that they shouldn't have. They'll say something out of line. We've had players that have commented on other players' wives and how much money they've made, and there's been a lot of scenarios where shut your fat mouth, while maybe out of line, didn't necessarily cost this person their job. Whereas T.O., he never had a job, so he doesn't need to shut his fat mouth, or obviously he does, but there's not any long-term consequence for T.O. But in this case, this week, there is a consequence. And if we would have done the show last week, it would have ended with just shut your fat mouth because you said something stupid. But now that we're in the second week of this story, it had actually cost this person their job. And I'm talking about former Vanderbilt chancellor and president, their current Ohio State president, Gordon Gee. Man has been long known for his bow ties and absolving the athletic department at Vanderbilt, and done a lot of interesting things throughout his career. But he had a long tenured history with Ohio State and came back to them in 2007. And recently, at a meeting of the Athletics Council for Ohio State University, he popped off. And a lot of these meetings where it's the internal folks. It's a meeting of it's Ohio State personnel in this case, where it's in other schools it'll be a meeting of collegiate officials. Okay, so it's kind of like you're in a group of your peers, you're in a group with your associates, and they tend to get a little comfortable. It's kind of like the SEC meetings. You'll hear some things, Nick Saban or Les Miles, those guys, they'll say something that maybe they wouldn't necessarily say in a typical press conference because they're surrounded by folks they're familiar with and folks that typically will have their back. Well, so anyways, Gordon Gee's at this meeting of the Athletics Council, and he popped off a couple of things. The first thing he did was on negotiating with Notre Dame. They're obviously negotiating their schedule's upcoming, and who the Big Ten for a long time tried to get Notre Dame. In fact, we heard rumors up till last year and the year prior that Notre Dame might move into the Big Ten. So this was his quote on negotiating with Notre Dame, and that is, "The fathers are holy on Sunday, and they're holy hell the rest of the week. You just can't trust those damn Catholics on a Thursday or Friday." And so literally, I can say that. All right, so there's number one, Gordon Gee. So basically you called out an entire religion, an entire school, an entire fan base. Yeah, that was probably a little bit out of line. You probably should have backed down and not ran off at the mouth any further. But he kept going. And when talking about how the Buckeyes should respond to SEC fans who blast the Big Ten because the Big Ten has 14 teams and maybe should be called the Big 14, I don't know. But anyway, so his response to that was, you tell the SEC when they can learn to read and write, they can figure out what we're doing. So he then takes a shot at the SEC where he used to be the chancellor of an SEC school. So there's strike two. So then we move into the third strike for Mr. Gordon Gee, and that was his comments on realignment for the conference. And it goes like this: the top goal of Big Ten presidents is to, quote, make certain we have institutions of like-minded academic integrity. So you won't see us adding Louisville. Well, so there he goes. So now he takes a shot over at the SEC, but then chose to follow it up with this. After a pause followed by laughter from the audience, Gee added that the Big Ten wouldn't add the University of Kentucky either. So Gordon Gee has absolutely laid himself out there, said 5 good old stupid things that you shouldn't have said, that while you were in a forum of your peers, it was recorded, it was documented, it was presented, it was put out there, it got a lot of press, and now the second half of this story this week, Gordon Gee announces his retirement. He decides, according to a Huffington Post article, that he's decided that he's going to step down, and he says, during my days away, I've had some time and self-reflection, and after much deliberation, I've decided it's now time for me to turn over the reins of leadership to allow the seeds that we have planted to grow. It's also time for me to re-energize and refocus myself. How about this, Gordon Gee? It's time for me to rethink the dumb crap that flew out of my mouth last week. That's why I'm stepping down, you big stupid.
And for that...
I'm sorry, wait. No, shut your fat mouth. Wrong.
For that, Gordon Gee, you get this week's Shut Your Fat Mouth.
Is this on? Hey! Is this on? Hey, shut your fat mouth. I'm talking here.
Murph, don't you wish once in a while you just hear the truth? Wouldn't it be great? But then when you actually sometimes do hear the truth from somebody, they end up costing themselves their job. And then they have to turn around and say what you know is a bold-faced lie, and then they're done. So Gordon Gee, he tells us how he really feels, right? I mean, isn't that what we're screaming most of the time to politicians and sports guys and media people? We're like, just tell us the truth, right? Like this whole thing with PRISM and the government and all that stuff, right? Like, just tell us the truth. But instead, they give us these political responses. I've decided it's time that I retire, blah, 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 blah. When everybody knows what's up. But the very fact he's getting fired is because he actually told the truth, It's kind of a weird story like that. But yeah. Does anybody think that it was more than ironic or coincidental that he's retiring? No, of course not. Now, is some of the stuff he said entirely not true? Do you mean to tell me that every person who grows up as a star athlete continues to have to do all of their own schoolwork and they never get special privileges? So everybody who goes to college is a perfect reader and writer? No, I think maybe he said maybe a little too much by saying they can't read or write. But I got to think there's some football players out there who have skirted by the system because they could throw for 20, touchdowns or whatever and stuff, you know what I'm saying? So I think there's some truth to his statements, but it's like, Gordon, what are you doing, man? You can't be saying this in a public forum.
If you're ripping on the school, and if you're ripping and you're trying to make fun, I think that's what got him in trouble. That if this was an openly critical statement of the state of college football by saying that there are academic concerns in a particular conference, and I feel that our university is challenged because we're not able to compete because we are holding our athletes to a higher standard of learning. If that's the message, then I don't think he's going to get into this. But when you say that an entire conference can't read or write, and because you're yucking it up there, Gordon Gee, because it's going to open mic night at Ohio State, I think that's what got him in trouble.
It's true. I mean, there's a little truth to his statement, but the way he says it and the way he goes about it is just completely wrong. And Murph, why is it always the Big Ten? Why is it the Big Ten? Is it because they feel so inferior to the SEC and the other schools and stuff? Like, the Big Ten used to be the freaking Big Ten, Michigan, Ohio State used to be, some really, really top tier teams. And then the SEC started doing their thing. And it seems like every other year there's some stupid national story with the Big Ten. You had, a few years ago, Little Sisters of the Poor, right? Didn't they call Boise State Little Sisters of the Poor or something like that?
Yeah.
Then it was we're gonna have two divisions. Leaders and Legends? Something stupid like that, right?
Stupid.
Leaders and Legends? Are you kidding me? And then now this with Gordon Gee, and then the Ohio State stuff with Terrell Pryor and Tressel, and just like Big Ten. What the crap are you doing, man?
And Ohio State is clearly, at least in recent history, they are the most successful and the most prominent college football program in that conference. I mean, I know Michigan fans would disagree with that, but the bottom line is that Ohio State's the one that rattled off national championships, and Michigan hasn't. And other than the sanctions and the things that have gone and prevented Ohio State from representing in high profile bowl games, they are the prominent program. And so, yes, absolutely, this is an inferiority complex because the SEC, aside from 2 or 3 schools, is has the most competitive talent and the most competitive football teams in the country. Then you look over at the Pac-13 or whatever you guys are up to now.
Pac-12.
Okay, Pac-12. There's 2 or 3 schools over there. There's Oregon. I know you don't like that, and USC will get back to prominence again, and hopefully your Beavers, who had a good good season last year. So there's a couple of schools. There's a handful of schools over there. There's a bunch in the SEC. There's 1 or 2 in the ACC, but then there's one really in the Big Ten, and so for them as that school in the Big Ten that can really run with the big dogs, quote, that can. And I left out the Big 12 too. There's Texas and going to be A&M. Boy, they're on the comeback with Manziel and those guys. But anyways, as really is the premier program of that conference, to have that inferiority complex and to call out the SEC like that, that was a dumb move. That was a punk move. And really, if you were all that you claim to be, you shouldn't have to lash out at Notre Dame or the SEC.
Moving forward.
Sheesh.
Every week, we start off every segment like that, Murph. Every week. We are perfect people, and we sit back and point out everyone else's flaws here at the Sports Degos. So, every week, Murph, something happens that's incredibly stupid. And I mean stupid. And if you need more clarification on what stupid is, here you go.
Stupid. A person below normal intelligence.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
I know I stand in line until you think you have the time to spend an evening with me.
Stupid is, stupid does, sir.
And if we go someplace to dance, I know that there's a chance you won't be leaving with me.
What are you, stupid or what?
Then afterwards we drop into a quiet little place and have a drink or two.
Are you stupid or something?
And then I go and spoil it all by saying something stupid like I love you.
What's the matter with you, boy? You too stupid to do what your coach tells you?
No. No what?
Murph, who's the big stupid of the week?
Man, this guy went back to back and give me another week, and I'm sure he will go with a three-peat for big stupid. And I'm talking about the Biebs. I'm talking about Justin
Murph,
Bieber.
you better be careful. You're going to piss off a whole bunch of 13-year-old boys and girls, and we're going to get alienated here. Be careful.
Now, listen, I understand that the way that our demographic rolls out, that there are a lot of believers in our audience, okay? So I do want to temper my opinions with the fact that these opinions are only my own, not of the collective Sports Degos, okay? So any of your anger or fury, please direct it back at theRaiderDago.com, not at the Sports Degos. Because I, as Murph, am speaking alone, in my opinion, about Justin Bieber being the big stupid for this week and for the prior week. Now, I'm going to give you the easy one. I'm going to give you the low-hanging fruit, okay? We tweeted out a picture earlier this week. You did, actually. You found it, which was phenomenal. You tweeted out a picture of the Biebs going back to 2010 when the Los Angeles Lakers were still in the midst of running off championships, and you posted up a picture of Justin Bieber in the crowd at Staples wearing Laker gear. Then the split screen happens. On the right-hand side, we fast forward to Justin Bieber, 2013, Miami Heat gear in the middle of Miami's run, wearing the paraphernalia from that team. So clearly, we're talking about a bandwagon guy. And the reason that I identify that as the first step, or the second really, in the timeline of Mr. Bieber's big stupid is the fact that he's from Canada. He's from London, Ontario. When you look at the map, London, Ontario is smack dab in between Detroit and Toronto. Now, Biebs, if you're rocking a Raptors hat one day and then you got a Pistons jersey on the next, I'm fine with that. There are some very conflicted fans of the Cleveland Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers because they live in towns that kind of split the distance between those two. I get that, Biebs, but we're not talking about that. Last time I checked, London, Ontario is not in between Miami and L.A., you big stupid. So that's the really the most recent part of it, but my favorite part, and my favorite part of Mr. Bieber being the big stupid is the fact that he decided to speed in his neighborhood. And while, that may not be a really big deal, the fact that he not only chose to speed in his neighborhood, but he got called out by a couple of former NFL athletes. That's where I think that this story really takes off, and what drew attention to him for me to call this guy our big stupid this week. And so what happened was that Justin Bieber, and this is so funny, Justin Bieber, okay, lives in a very swank neighborhood in Southern California, okay, where there's lots of, well, I'm not going to say lots, I don't know how many people, but there are numerous famous people that live in this neighborhood. And so Justin Bieber decided to drive at a rapid pace through his neighborhood in his Ferrari, and someone took notice of the fact that Mr. Bieber was flying through the neighborhood, and that person was Keyshawn Johnson. Now, Keyshawn Johnson took note of the fact that the Biebs was flying through, and so in his Ferrari, and Keyshawn in his Prius had his kid in the back, and Biebs goes zooming by him, and so Keyshawn went, oh, man, that's out of line. The kid's been doing this before. I'm going to call him out. So Keyshawn, how fast of a Prius does Keyshawn have? He drove home, dropped off his kid, then bolted to Bieber's house and blocked off his driveway so Bieber couldn't get in his driveway. So Bieber jumps out of the Ferrari and runs into the house because clearly no one's as intimidating as Keyshawn Johnson, especially when he's in an electric-powered Toyota. Man, so that in itself was awesome. And I'm like, this story is great. Bieber, you're the big stupid. But then it got even better because Eric Dickerson, also a resident of Calabasas, which is this neighborhood, this high-profile swank neighborhood in Southern California. Eric Dickerson put it out on Twitter. We love Twitter. And Eric Dickerson says, I live in Calabasas too, and Justin Bieber needs to slow his ass down. It's an epidemic. Everybody knows that the Biebs speeds through town, and apparently only ex-NFLers are most sensitive to it. And good for them. Justin Bieber, slow your ass down. You big stupid.
You big stupid. Good job, Eric Dickerson, Keyshawn Johnson. Murph, a couple of NFLers who used to fly down the field in the NFL. You know, Keyshawn Johnson and Eric Dickerson. Good job, man. Good on you. You know, we posted the link. We tweeted it out. We hashtagged it Beliebers, whatever you call them or something like that, you know. So, you know, we'll get the hate messages and our houses will burn down and stuff like that, but it's okay. Murph, I love it, man. You know what I love even more? I love what Keyshawn Johnson says. And this is interesting. This is an entitled athlete, to a certain degree, calling another guy entitled. And that word is huge. That word, I believe, is the epidemic of our day. This sense of entitlement leads us to wrong thinking, to maladaptive thinking. Keyshawn Johnson says, in regards to Bieber, you got a 19-year-old kid feeling entitled, speeding up and down the highway. That's why all the neighbors is mad. Then you got him spitting on people in the neighborhood. You can't do that. I love this. I love this. I love Johnston calling him out, saying, look, man, you little entitled prick, you can't be doing this and stuff, you know? I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. As if it didn't get any worse. From Justin Bieber, 2010, Miami Heat fan, sporting Laker gear. Justin Bieber, 2013, Lakers fan, sporting Miami Heat gear. Are you kidding me, dude? That picture is phenomenal. And if you look at the change, right? You know, as a teenager, you're going through individuation and differentiation. You're separating yourself from your parents, and you're finding out where you fit in life. And I get that. But, man, to be sporting Laker gear, and then 3 years later to be sporting Heat gear, like, can you get more bandwagon than that? It was ridiculous. It's crazy. And yet, millions of people love this kid. Let me ask you a question, Murph. I know you're a happily married man with 2 kids and stuff like that. Could you imagine, and would you trade your life to be a 19-year-old kid, money up the yin-yang, options, if you know what I'm referring to, and and traveling the world and being a famous singer and stuff? It sounds enticing, doesn't it? I mean, you'd have to be lying your face off to not say that. My
Yeah, I
lifestyle
mean,
would be
who
kinda
says
fun.
that when I was 19, I needed money to have options?
I'm pretty sure the Beebs has more options than you did at 19, even though you were a phenomenal water polo player,
Hey, man,
which
I'm
we
telling
all
you.
know.
Hey, that pulled the chicks, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah, you pulled something, but it rhymes with chicks. Anyway,
Hey-o.
all right. Okay, let's gain composure. Beebs, you're the big stupid of the week. Knock it off, you little entitled dummy. Okay, Murph. We're gonna segue into an important segment, but before that, we're gonna make a little announcement. After this week, because we do love the Raiders very much. However, we want this to be an overall sports show, right? We want to look at sports from many different perspectives, but we don't want to alienate any audience. Now, while we are big Raiders fans, and we could talk about the Raiders for as long as anybody wants to, we don't want to inundate our show with only Raiders, right? We want to keep it moving. We want the flow to be good. And we want, to attract new listeners. We wrote an article this week on LeBron and Duncan. It got a lot of attention. So we want to keep that kind of stuff rolling. At the same time, Murph, we don't want to turn our back on our roots, right? My deceased father, rest in peace, he might come up from the grave and, slap me upside the head and stuff if I did that, right? So what we've decided to do is have just a separate podcast for the Raiders. Now, it's not going to be 90 minutes. It'll be maybe half hour, 45 minutes. It'll be every week, and we'll still call it Raiders Repertoire, but it'll be separate. So you'll be able to download every week the Sports Degos regular show and then also Raiders Repertoire. And we'll record the Raiders Repertoire right after the Sports Degos show. So still same time every week, 9 o'clock Saturdays, but from 9 to about 10:15, 10:30 will be Sports Degos, and then 10:30 to about 11:15 will be Raiders Repertoire. And I'm excited because this accomplishes two things, which you talked about earlier. It accomplishes broadening our horizons to the sports world and not alienating maybe some non-Raiders fans. I don't know why they're like that, but that's just how God made them. So we won't be alienating any non-Raiders fans, and we'll be able to broadcast to a more national audience. And at the same time, we're making a more direct show towards Raiders and Raiders fans, and it's what we're passionate about. We're passionate about sports, Raiders, A's, all that kind of stuff. And so just kind of separating them, I think, accomplishes both goals of ours. Anything you want to say?
No, you absolutely said everything. You nailed it. I mean, I think that when you say we don't want to alienate our roots, I mean, we recognize the fact that Raider Nation is what built this show, and the fact that we have Raider Nation has our back, and we see that. It's evident on Twitter. It's evident on sportsdegos.com. We know that we've historically had a Raider-centric show. But also, we do want to branch out a little bit. So we're going to have, as you mentioned, we're going to have the main show be the Sports Degos. We'll have the Raiders Repertoire be its own thing. And I'm really excited about doing that. I'm really excited about having an absolutely, just exclusive Raider show with exclusively Raider content. And even more so as we creep on into football season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I really look forward to it.
Yeah, I do as well. So this week, we will still do Raiders Repertoire, which means report in Italian. But starting next week, that will be cut out of the show, and we'll do Sports Degos regular show, and then right afterwards, Raiders Repertoire, still with the intro music of the Autumn Wind. So, for the last time in the regular format, we are going to segment now into Raiders Repertoire. Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph. Welcome back to the Sports Degos, the sportsdegos.com, DEGOS.com, on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Murph, the silver and black. You know, Murph, I'm a little upset. We run a online Madden football league on Xbox. If you're interested, West 360, West, W-E-S-T 360. I've been the Raiders all year, Murph, and I won the first 2 Super Bowls of Madden 13. Lost to you by a fumble with the old stupid freaking, Wood Goodson on the 3-yard line. Kills me.
Must have been all that weed and loaded weaponry.
Something like that, right? Prelude, you know. They say video games should imitate real life. So sure enough, Goodson, first time touches the ball in the game, fumbles 3-yard line. Anyway, not going to talk about history here. But I love the Raiders. I got to give them up. I'm a little upset. I was hoping you'd take the Titans, but true to form, you want the Raiders, so that's good. I'm excited for you. But Murph, as I watch, as I can, watch stories be posted, keep up with the team, look at OTAs and stuff like that. I don't know if it's just because I'm a big football fan and a big Raiders fan, but I'm jacked for this upcoming season. I know it's June. I know it's OTAs, but I'm jacked, man. New regime, yeah, the thing with the publicity guy and all that kind of stuff, and Raiders kind of got some flack for that, but big freaking deal. That could happen to anybody. I'm not worried about that. Murph. However, as much as I'm jacked, it was something that happened, and I'm not sure if we talked about it on the show yet or not. That's why we wanted to kind of cover it. Hayden, he had a little mishap. He had to go to the hospital, had to have surgery. Does that worry you? Does that make you think, uh-oh, we shouldn't have drafted him, or uh-oh, look what's happening and stuff? Does that worry you, his injury and having the surgery and stuff like that? What are your thoughts on that?
No, it absolutely doesn't worry me one bit, and I would like us to get into the to the firing that happened late last week too. But no, DJ Hayden going in for additional abdominal surgery. I mean, when you think about what that guy had to go through, and you could do a simple Google image search and see the size of the scar. I mean, when you get your chest cracked open, there's going to be a lot of scarring, and so no surprise that there were scars abdominally that he's had to deal with and had to go in and get taken care of. It had absolutely nothing to do with the injury that he had. It's a residual effect of his body healing itself. It doesn't bother me one bit. And anybody that does allow that to creep into their realm of concern, I think, is overreacting to it. There were some fan sites and some fans lashing out on Twitter saying, "Oh, I told you so." Mm-hmm. No, this is the guy the Raiders wanted. His health was not a concern for Reggie McKenzie, nor was it for 31 other general managers that had him at various positions on the board. This is something to go in, clean up some scar tissue, and DJ Hayden is going to be in full force going into training camp, and it doesn't bother me one bit.
It doesn't bother me either. What bothered me is the reaction by the fans to all of a sudden prove that they're the know-it-alls of the world. Told you we should have drafted Floyd. Told you we should have drafted so-and-so. Told you we should have drafted blah, 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 blah. It's like they have the mindset of the media where they're waiting for the Raiders to screw up so they can say how knowledgeable they are. And that, to me, seems because this is a family show, donkey backwards. Substitute donkey for another word. Why would you, as a fan base, wait for your owner or wait for an opportunity to bash your owner? You hear a lot in the world today about haters, and you'll hear people say they're so passionate about their fan base that they want to criticize the very people that operate and run the franchise and actually get paid to run it and actually care about the franchise a whole lot more than you think you do. Yet they sit and they lie in wait for the first chance to pounce on the regime. Now, in no means am I a Reggie apologist, but I'm going to back the guy that I know has more invested in the team than I ever could. And especially guys like Dennis Allen and the other coaches and stuff. Now, some people, sure, it's just a job to them. It's just a paycheck. It's what they do. But you got to think, you gotta hope, at least, and you got to have enough scruples running together in your brain that these guys have done their homework, they've done their research, they've met the guy in person, they've personally had him work out for them right in front of their face, that they're going to have a more educated guess, if you will, for lack of a better word, than you are, who's only seen videos and pictures online and read your ESPNs and your Sports Illustrateds and stuff like that. So I got no issues with Hayden having the surgery. My only issue is people ragging on McKenzie and everybody saying, told you so, told you so. That makes sense? Sonny, am I crazy?
No. Sonny, let me ask you a question. How many downs has DJ Hayden played in the NFL?
Let's see here. 1 - 4 times 3. Not 0.
So what counts? What counts? The fact that the guy had to go back and get some cleanup done after he suffered a life-threatening injury, or what he's going to do on Sunday for the next, 4 years of a rookie contract? No, he hasn't signed yet. We're going to get into that later. But, I mean, typically a rookie contract is 4 years. So this guy's got 4 years for us to determine whether the number 12 pick was the right pick for DJ Hayden. So absolutely the criticism is unfair.
And then if you think about it, it's hypocritical. Because we'll watch a guy like McFadden get hurt every year. Every year, I think, since he's been in the league, he's been hurt. And yet, in the offseason, we'll say, McFadden's going to kill it. McFadden's going to kill it. And we won't even take into account his injuries. Of course, we all say we hope he can get through the year, but we still say McFadden's going to kill it. So why, when DJ Hayden gets drafted, would not you trust the organization and say the same thing about him? Is it because he hasn't done anything in the NFL and we haven't seen what his talent is? Maybe firsthand, whatever. But if you watch his game tape, the dude's a baller. So why would you have a different outlook for him than you would for McFadden? Doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And and I got another one for you that's always bothered me. Al Davis, often criticized for his draft picks, never heralded recently. He drafted Michael Bush, who busted his twig in Louisville, had to sit out his first year of football, and came back and was the best thing that happened to the Oakland Raiders running game in a long time. And I'm including Darren McFadden because all you Raider fans, anybody can talk about the potential of Darren McFadden, the actual on-field results, other than a 6-game stretch in 2011 or whatever the heck it was. Michael Bush outperformed Darren McFadden, and Michael Bush has proven to have longevity and production in the NFL. Totally goes unnoticed the fact that Al Davis took a chance on a guy that was hurt. This happens, guys. This happens in the NFL. Players get hurt at the end of their collegiate careers, and you get teams that will take a chance on them based on the fact that they're going to recover from their injuries. The Niners did it this year with the running back out of South Carolina. It happens all the time. And when that happens, everybody's going to freak out. Oh, the Yorks are amazing. And, Jim Harbaugh. And, they saw something. And, his name is escaping me at the moment. But everybody knows what I'm talking about. But it's like they're going to get heralded, But the Raiders are going to get pounded on for drafting DJ Hayden because he's had a little bit of a health concern with something that was completely unrelated to his initial injury. And then you got players like Michael Bush who go on to these fantastic careers and that the Raiders took a chance on, and nobody pays attention. Everyone always just wants to bag on him for, not drafting Calvin Johnson. So it's absolutely ridiculous.
And in a way, as Raiders fans, I don't know if it's consciously or subconsciously, but we take the same point of view as the media. Maybe because they've been down for so long, it's like we sit and wait for something to pick at, It's like when you've been married for 10 years, right? Like, when you're first wooing a lady and stuff, those first few dates you go on, she's perfect, right? Everything she does is perfect. Even her imperfections are perfect. Fast forward 10 years down the road, couple of kids pop out, mortgages, stuff like that. everything she does, you nag at each other, you hate each other. The things you used to like become the things you hate. I think that's the way with fans. It's like we're so passionate, we're so in love with the team that the things we used to like, we don't like. The chances that Davis used to take on guys in the draft, we turn around and hate because so many of them fail and stuff, So it's like, I don't know. It just bothers me. It bothers me a lot. Anyway, moving forward.
Marcus Lattimore. That's the guy I'm trying to think of out of South Carolina.
There you go. Yeah. Talk about a big
dude, he's had 2 knees blown out. 2
huge.
Massive injuries. And you know what? And watch him come back and be the replacement for Frank Gore and continue to ball out in the Niners running game.
Not only injuries, I mean gruesome. I think we did a segment not too long ago about top 10 injuries on the whatever. Okay, Murph, moving on. We tweeted it last week, I think, but I still want to talk about it a little bit. Flynn enters as number 1. Gone is the talk about Pryor being a starting quarterback. Praise the Lord.
He's going to be a tight end. Telling you.
But now, well, in Madden, he'll be a tight end because you can take anything you want, move any position you want. So that's pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
Maybe we should have an own Madden podcast. Hey, we already did. Okay, so Matt Flynn, number 1 on the depth chart, entering OTAs, entering, offseason, whatever. Does that mean anything? Who knows? He got beat out in Seattle by Wilson. Is he going to get beat out by another Wilson this summer? Because while Flynn comes in as the guy, the dude only has 2 starts under his belts. Now, he has 2 starts, but he's been in the NFL, and he knows the system, and he probably has a better grasp of the playbook. Who knows, right? He's been a pro longer. However, all I hear is this Tyler Wilson guy. I keep hearing these great reports about Tyler Wilson. And the question you have to ask yourself, is he going to push Flynn? And the second thing you have to ask yourself, would it be so wrong to throw Wilson in the mix? Who's going to be the long-term guy? I think has to be the question the coaches ask themselves this year, because this is definitely a rebuilding year. If you expect Raiders to be in the playoffs this year, good for you. I hope they do. I hope they win the Super Bowl. I hope they go 16-0, obviously, as a fan. Realistically, yeah. If they get to the playoffs, man, I think they overachieved. So why not in a building year, if you drafted Wilson to be your future guy, and if he has all the right, potentials and the things he's doing in practice, why not put him in now and have him build with this young team down the road and have Flynn as your backup, unless you think Flynn's going to be the starter. So I really don't think there's a negative to starting Wilson if they think he's the guy. It's just a matter of, do they think he's the guy over Flynn,
Well, Matt Flynn was brought into Seattle to be their starting quarterback, and they took a flyer on a guy like Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, and look what happened. Russell Wilson became the camp darling, and then they put him in football games, and he ended up obviously showing to be one of the premier athletes at the quarterback position last year in the NFL. So, is there a possibility that Matt Flynn could have been brought in to be the Oakland Raiders starting quarterback? The Raiders then took a flyer on a guy like Tyler Wilson, and he will then outperform Matt Flynn in camp and earn the starting role by week 1. I don't think there's anything that tells us that's not possible. And really, I would think that ultimately we are going to see both of these guys start at the quarterback position for the Raiders this year because of a couple of things. One, you mentioned it's a rebuilding year, and anybody that's not looking at it as a rebuilding year is not paying attention. I mean, this team has got, 10 draft picks, only returning, I don't remember off the top of my head, however many guys from last season. I mean, we are a long, long way away from Hugh Jackson and the 8-8 Oakland Raiders, okay? So all that said, there has been a huge turnover in personnel, and then also I think one of the things that Dennis, and I don't know this, I haven't read it anywhere, but this is just what deductive reasoning and common sense would tell me. Last year, I think the biggest mistake that Dennis Allen made was his unwillingness to shift away from things that aren't working. And I know that, there is always the thought of, come up with the plan, stick to the plan, and that you have to stick to the plan in order to have long-term success. But when you look at some of the glaring mistakes that were going on with this football team last year, most
hiring. Sorry.
Right. And most importantly, the zone blocking scheme that was going nowhere with the line. They couldn't practice it in practice. They could only perform it in games, which is, it's so illogical to even implement something like that. So the zone blocking scheme, the fact that your best player, your most talented athlete was struggling within that system after the prior year excelling in that system. So the fact that Dennis Allen chose to stick with that for 17 weeks and then fire Greg Knapp at the end of the season, I think he might have learned something in that you got to be a little more fluid in your decision-making. Terrell Pryor should have started way sooner than week 17 for this football team. The moment that you're, quote, out of it, that's when you got to start playing your young guys. The moment that the Titans were out of it, Jake Locker took over as the starting quarterback of the Titans football team. There's plenty of evidence in the league, whether it was, Aaron Rodgers or you name it, when at a certain point a team arrives to where it's like, okay, we're out of it. Let's go with our young guys. Let's see what we got because this season's shot. So let's find out what we have going into next year. Dennis Allen didn't do that, and his hand was only forced when it comes to Terrell Pryor because of Carson Palmer's injury. So I think again, this is just Josh theory, Murph theory here, but I'm saying he learned from that last year, and that this year going into it, if Matt Flynn's not getting it done by week 4, guess who our starting quarterback's going to be in week 5? It's going to be Tyler Wilson, and I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be. And then again, going back to the third quarterback, Terrell Pryor, like you mentioned, Terrell Pryor is going to play another position in the NFL. Ask Tim Tebow why you should, because eventually you prove that you're not going to be talented enough at that position, and if you're not willing to play tight end or H-back or whatever, you're gone. You're not going to have a job. Terrell Pryor said before he's willing to do it. He's going to play another position on this football team, whether it's tight end or wide receiver, even who knows, he's got the body type for it. But I think we are at some point, we're going to see Matt Flynn and Tyler Wilson quarterback this team. And, I hate to say it, but I know Wilson right now is the camp darling, but the sooner the better. If he's the long-term solution, then the sooner the better. Get him in there, man. Get the kid some reps, get him some time, and, let him move on to managing and to helming this football team going forward into the 2014 season.
Charles Woodson said about Matt Flynn, I look forward to seeing him grow. Woodson also said, this team will compete. Woodson also said, now this following quote kind of scares me. The only difference is the big guy's not here, Woodson said Tuesday, referring to the late Raiders owner Al Davis. That's really it. Knowing that you're not going to see him come out onto the field is the only difference. There's only one, Al Davis. I love the statement. I agree 100%. There's only one Al Davis. But is that the only difference to the Raiders this year than last year? Is that Al Davis is gone? I hope they've made some... You know what I'm saying? It's like, hey, Woodson, give us something more to hope for and stuff, But in all seriousness, of course Woodson's going to say that. Of course he's going to come in and say, I think this team will compete. Do you believe him? Do you believe Woodson when he says that? Do you believe he's seen enough of this team in the couple weeks since his signing and when he was going over what's going to happen and talking to Reggie, talking to DA, seeing the guys who are new in the locker room and stuff like that? Do you really believe Woodson when he says that? And do you think with Woodson here, he's going to help be competitive? Dennis Allen said of Woodson, Charles Woodson plays the game with a little bit of swagger. That's what the real good teams do. So hopefully he'll bring some of that here to our football team. And you have to have swagger. If you're beaten down all the time, well, you're not going to come out, with anything and stuff, Woodson says, I was convinced this team will compete. This team will be in games. Nick Roach says about Woodson, he's a legend. I think he's going to be great for the locker room. Matt Flynn said extremely smart and also mentioned Woodson's swagger. I love where Woodson says this, though, at the very end of the article. He says this, and he's referring to some of the young guys in the team and the fan base. I know what it's like to have this fan base behind you, said a smiling Woodson. A lot of these guys don't. I love that quote. That's epic. That's kudos to anybody in Raider Nation right there. You know what I'm saying? But do you believe Woodson when he says that, or do you believe that's like coach speak, so to say?
No, I believe him, and you know the article that you're mentioning. You know, there's a picture, there's a still there. If you pause the video of Charles Woodson sitting with that Raider backdrop behind him, and he's wearing a Raiders workout shirt, and it's good to see him back in silver and black. But anyways, all that said, yeah, I believe him. I absolutely believe him. Now, is he accurate? That's, I think, ultimately the other question. Is that Warren Sapp is arguably one of the best defensive linemen, at least in recent history, to play in the NFL, and he thought Tommy Kelly should be the highest paid defensive lineman in the league. Does that make did that make Warren Sapp wrong, or was that just Warren Sapp's opinion based on what he saw out of Tommy Kelly? Well, I don't. Warren Sapp was great in his own right, but I don't know how much of an assessor of talent he was. I think that even a bigger example of this would be Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, when closing out his career with the Washington Wizards, invested an absolute ton in Kwame Brown. Remember that guy? He was supposed to be the next biggest and baddest thing. Michael Jordan is, not even arguably, Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player to play in the NBA in the history of the sport, and he was fully invested in Kwame Brown. He has since been, as the greatest basketball player of all time, the worst owner when it comes to the NBA. His teams suck. He does not do a good job of evaluating talent, and frankly, a lot of great players don't do a good job of that. When you look at the guys that ultimately end up being the best coaches and the best managers of talent are the guys that quite couldn't make it. They're the guys that didn't have necessarily all the natural attributes and gifts. They were the guys that had to grind, the guys that had to work, the guys that had to absolutely have an impeccable work ethic to compete. Jordan didn't have to have that. Jordan was inundated with talent, and so when he looks at a guy, he's looking at a player and thinking, well, you're just supposed to be able to do this. I can't coach you how to do it because it's just natural to me. So you know what I'm saying? Like, he has a different level of expectation out of other players. So for Charles Woodson to look at this team and say, oh, these guys are good enough to compete. Well, yeah, well, that's great, Chuck, and I hope you're right, but I don't necessarily trust your ability to gauge talent because you are so talented yourself. And so I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I think that's where this is kind of fallen in line. And ultimately, as long as he is saying that, that's what we want to hear as fans. And what else would you expect to say? You don't take the field expecting to lose when it comes to really any level of team competition, but especially when you're talking about the NFL. You don't want a guy to go, well, I'm thinking we could probably win 4 games this year. I'm not quite sure. We'll see how things go. That's not what you want to hear. You want to hear a guy that's going to say, I think we could compete based on what I've seen, that things look good. Things are changing. Al's not here, but, things are still relatively, that's whatever. I trust him, and I'm glad to see him back. And so, yes, do I think he's telling the truth? Absolutely. Do I trust his assessment? Maybe not so much.
It's pretty early. It's pretty early. I hope it's true.
Early.
It's pretty early. Now,
it's June.
I still expect the Raiders to go 16-0. Moving
better.
forward. The Raiders have signed 6 of their draft picks to new contracts. They have 4 left to do. First round cornerback DJ Hayden, second round offensive lineman Melanick Watson, third round linebacker Sio Moore, and fourth round quarterback Tyler Wilson. To be honest with you, all 4 of those guys are probably in my top 5 of the guys I wanted to get signed first. Do you think it's a matter of just, you sign the lower guys first? The lower rounds are easier to sign. The upper guys, you work the contracts a little better. Do you think the Raiders are going to see, DJ, you had surgery. We want to see what's going to go on. Do you think there's a little bit of posturing there? Do you think they want to see how much Wilson pushes Flynn? And maybe another question on that. Do you think this is a strategy about not signing Wilson yet? Do you think this is more about the Raiders saying, hey, Wilson, you want to get signed? Push Flynn, man. Let's see you go for the starting job. And do you think that's going to make Wilson more competitive in practice?
Absolutely. And, Reggie McKenzie has proven to be a very shrewd individual when it comes to contracts. And there is no doubt that he came out well before Tyler Wilson has signed his contract and said, Matt Flynn is our starter. That sends the message to the agents, and that sends a message to Tyler Wilson that you're not a starter on this football team, so don't ask us for starter money. You are a 4th-round pick, and you will get paid accordingly. So, yes, there's a reserve, so we don't have to worry about, the Raiders exceeding any kind of salary cap or anything like that. And typically first-round players like DJ Hayden, they're not going to get signed until closer to the official training camp anyway. So and then Watson and even Sio Moore. I mean, that's not a huge surprise there. I think Wilson, if anything, that's more of the surprise that he hasn't signed already. And I think that ultimately, again, the reasoning for the Raiders coming out so early it was the end of May when that came out that Flynn was going to be the starting quarterback. I mean, that part of it is posturing, but the rest of it is it's absolutely just timing. And DJ Hayden's going to be a starter on this football team. I mean, that's. Does he have to be? I don't know. It depends on how many nickel packages they decide to run and how, Mike Jenkins shows up when it comes to training camp. But, so again, those are the kind of, all those outside things, that's ultimately what's going to determine the timing and the signing of this contract. But it's going to get done. Now, there's not anybody in the Raiders draft class that is going to hold out, so we don't have another Jamarcus Russell or anything like that in our hands. So none of this is concerning at all. And again, it's June. So we got a long way to go.
It's a June. Remember that.
June.
It's a June. You need to always keep that in mind. All right, Murph. We're going to take a quick commercial break brought to you by our sponsors at Bass-O-Matic. You're listening to the Sports Degos.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
How many times has this happened to you? You have a bass and you're trying to find an exciting new way to prepare it for the dinner table. You can scale the bass, remove the bass, tail, head, and bones, and serve the fish as you would any other fish dinner. But why bother now that you can use Ronco's amazing new kitchen tool, the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Yes, fish eaters, the days of troublesome scaling, cutting, gutting are over because Super Bass-O-Matic 13 is the tool that lets you use the bass with no fish, no waste, and without scaling, cutting, or gutting. Here's how it works. Catch a bass, remove the hook, and drop the bass. That's right, the whole bass into the Super Bass-O-Matic 13. Now, just adjust the control dial so that the bass is blended just the way you like it. Yes, it's that simple.
Wow, that's terrific bass.
We've got bass here. Fast, easy, ready to port. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 comes with 10 interchangeable rotors, a 9-month guarantee, and a booklet. 1,001 ways to harness your bass. Super Bass-O-Matic 13 works great on sunfish, perch, sole, and other small aquatic creatures. That's Super Bass-O-Matic 13. It's clean, simple, and after 5 or 10 fish, it gets to be quite a rush. Super Bass-O-Matic 13. You're never going to have to scale, cut, or gut again. Just send $49.95 to the Sports Degos, care of the Dago Dungeon, Oakland, California.
Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph. All right, welcome back to the Sports Degos, thesportsdegos.com. You can find us on Twitter at the Sports Degos. Murph, 81 minutes and counting. We're going to fly through these next few segments here. But Murph, before we fly, we need to pay a little homage. Murph, we need to pay homage, Murph, to our motherland, if you will. For me, it's two places. It's Sicily and it's Italia. Murph, every week we do a little segment called Whopping Historical Fact of the Week. And you do some intense research. Only thing that comes close is how much you research your beer. So Murph, what is the Whopping Historical Fact of the Week?
Well, Sonny, thank you. And there was a few major historical things that happened on this day, and I'm talking about June 8th. One was the Boston Celtics won the title in 1986 away from the Houston Rockets, but not any Italians on that team. A lot of Irishmen going on, but no Italians. Also, on this day, June 8th, 1966, massive happening in the world of sports. The AFL and the NFL announced their merger. Very big happening. And obviously, with the appointed commissioner of the AFL being Al Davis, I was all over this story and looking forward to talking about the Italian connections that went on during the AFL-NFL announced merger. But Tex Schramm, Lamar Hunt, Al Davis, Pete Rozelle, not Italians. So I decided to look a little deeper into other facets of pop culture, and what I came across was a very interesting tidbit of info, and that is when we rewind the clock to 1984. I don't know how fond you are of 1984. You'll see you were born in, 79, so you were 5, right? Is that right, in 1984?
Yes, I was.
All right. So you probably don't remember much of 1984. I, however, being a little bit older than you are, I was 11 in 1984, and Van Halen released the album 1984, which is still one of my all-time favorite albums. And there's a lot of fond memories I have of the year 1984. And on this day, June 8th, 1984, 3 iconic movies were released. One of them was Trading Places, an absolutely hysterical comedy with Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. The other was Ghostbusters. Come on, man. I don't care how old you are. Ghostbusters is one of the all-time best. Bill Murray, again, Dan Aykroyd, Rick Moranis, Sigourney Weaver. Absolute phenomenal movie. The third movie released on June 8th, 1984 was Gremlins. Now, I don't know how old you were when you saw Gremlins for the first time. I didn't see it in the theater. I think I saw it when we rented it on VHS. I know a lot of people, of our tens and tens of listeners, 8 of them don't know what VHS is. But you used to go to the video store and you'd buy this big old giant brick tape and you'd put it in your player and you'd watch it on your little 4x3 TV. Gremlins scared me when I was a kid. Gremlins was scary movie. Yeah, it was kind of funny and it had some lighthearted moments, but it was kind of graphic for, and it was for a, quote, lighthearted horror movie. Well, being that Gremlins was the third of these movies released on June 8, 1984, I started digging into some, and I thought, well, I'll find an Italian connection with Ghostbusters because that's the big of the three, right? No Italians in Ghostbusters. Rick Moranis, Bill Murray, those guys, not Italians. I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll go to Trading Places. No, kind of the same thing. Ivan Reitman, Dan Aykroyd, Eddie Murphy, although we share last names, right? Eddie Murphy, not an Italian. But then I got on to Gremlins, and I came across the director of Gremlins, and that man is an Italian. Joseph Joe Dante Jr., born November 28, 1946, an American film director, producer, editor, and actor. His films, notably Gremlins, often mix fantastical storylines with comedic elements. So, on this day, June 8th, we celebrate the 1984 release of the movie Gremlins. And when looking into this guy's body of work, he's got some cool movies. Piranha in 1978, kind of an answer to Jaws, kind of weak. But The Howling in 1981, man, great horror movie. If you've never seen The Howling, about werewolves. Of course, Gremlins in 84. Explorers, which was another great movie, another sci-fi movie in 85. Inner Space in 1987, a movie with Martin Short and Dennis Quaid. And The Burbs. I don't know if you've ever seen The Burbs, but The Burbs
Tom
is
Hanks.
awesome. Dude, Tom Hanks, Corey Feldman, dude, The Burbs is great. Matinee, Small Soldiers. This guy's got a track record of movies. He's kind of been out of the mix, as he got on into the 90s and into the aughts, and now he's about retired. He's 66 years old, but has a great body of work. So we celebrate this filmmaker, this director, producer, editor on this day that his most famous film was released June 8, 1984, Joseph Joe Dante Jr., Italian-American.
Murph, excellent job, as always, on the whopping historical fact of the week. Murph, this just in. We need a better This Just In segment than that. Oh, wait. Let's try this. Breaking news here at the Sports Degos. This
One of those.
Yeah. Something like that. Murph, we may be getting some help from a Twitter follower for Wapapalooza 13. Born a Raider, at RaiderGirl 1965, says I'm local, can cook up stuff if you need it. 100% Dego here. Love the offer. I just sent you some direct messages about kind of our plan, what we're going to do, and love it. Appreciate it.
Awesome. The more Italians for Wapapalooza 13, the better.
Well, but the more Italians, the less raviolis. I mean, let's face it. We're dealing with Italians.
And the less words. You know what I mean? It's tough to get in with a bunch of Italian talk.
Yeah, more Italians, the merrier. More Italians, the merrier. But, Murph, we're going to transition and talk about the Irish for a second and the sad sacks.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
Sad sack.
It's really unfair. It's my team. It's my quarterback.
Sad sack.
I'll be lying if I said that it didn't bother me.
Sad sack.
Sometimes emotions is what makes a person.
Sad sack.
Promised Mess I wouldn't do this. But, as I said, there comes a time when
Sad sack.
Oh, I just changed my shirt. My chicken!
Sad sack.
I'm not a sad sack, am I?
You complete me.
Sad sack.
Go.
Sonny, what's a canadle?
A canadle? Is that like a hard Italian candy with cream on the inside and some stuff on the outside?
No. It's a small mass of leavened dough. Don't you know that? I mean, come on. Everybody knows what a canadle is, man. K-N-A-I-D-E-L. Canadle.
Sorry.
Our sad sack of the week is our Scripps 2013 Scripps National Spelling Bee champion. I'm going to butcher his name, but I'm going to do my best. Arvind Ma'ankali. Wait. Ma'ankali.
Ma'ankali is Italian. Oh, no, sorry.
Hey, Ma'ankali. There you go. Help me out.
Ma'ankali.
Hey, R.V. Ma'ankali, right? So this guy wins his spelling bee championship, right? And he wins with canadle. When you watch the way that Ma'ankali wins the spelling bee championship, when they present him with his final word, you get the feeling like the kid knows it. Like he's got it, man. He's in. You could see this kind of the grin on his face, the smile washes over him like he knows. But he asked anyways. He asked about the origin of the word. He asks them to use the word in context. Like, he kind of drills them on a few things, before he comes up with the spelling of Kanaidle. But ultimately, after gathering up all of his information, he kind of looks around a little bit, and he busts out with Knaidel. Kanaidle. And man, the place goes bat crap. Everybody's cheering. Everybody's screaming. They know he got it right. They congratulate him on winning. The confetti's falling. I mean, this is the best moment in this kid's life, right? No, not to this boss. He just stood back, held that stoic look on his face, let that confetti fall, and just looked around the room. You sad sack. You just worked how long and how hard to win a spelling bee? You can't crack a smile, Mr. Knaidle? That's it. That's all I got.
Hey, sad sack. Seriously? You are the sad sack of the week with Murph and Sonny.
Man, Murph, how come he's not even cracking a smile? Is it like, did he expect to win and this is just what is happening to him? Like, wouldn't you be the guy behind him, the second place winner's clapping? He's more excited than this guy is. This guy's like, yeah, I expected confetti. So what? It's like, show some emotion, bro. Really? Come on now. That's funny. That's sad sack. You think he was happy? Do you think he went out and had his favorite meal, or do you think he just went home, put his trophy on top of his dresser, and said, expected, going to bed?
I don't know. Maybe they went home and made Knaidles.
Or cannolis.
Or cannolis. Oh, man. We got to get some cannolis going at Wapapalooza.
We need some cannolis. For,
you know what? The difference between this guy, Arvid Malankali, and us is that you have your Knaidles and you grimace. Not us, man. We have cannolis, and it's all grins.
And
brother.
we sit back and unbuckle our belt, and we smile.
Oh, man.
All right, Murph, one more commercial break, and we are going to come back with a couple segments made and the whopping article of the week. But not whopping like Italian. Like, this is the big article. It's pretty cool. Sports Degos. Coming right back.
It's time for another boring podcast. Poop. That's right. The Degos are back. Can't get rid of them. They're like a bad penny.
Welcome back to the Sports Degos with Sonny and the Murph.
Well, you know why we're here. So if you got any doubts or reservations, now is the time to say so. No one will think any less of you, because once you enter this family, there's no getting out.
The thing that made Jimmy so happy that morning was that this was the day that Tommy was being made. Jimmy was so excited, you'd think he was being made. Jimmy and I could never be made because we had Irish blood. It didn't even matter that my mother was Sicilian. See, it's the highest honor they can give you. It means you belong to a family and a crew. It means that nobody can f*** around with you. It also means you could f*** around with anybody just as long as they aren't also a member.
Murph, we want to bring in a new segment this week. We're all about new segments. This one we actually thought about and put some strategy into it, Murph. We want to have a little segment called Made. Murph, who was made this week?
Well, Sonny, a lot of our segments on the Sports Degos, we, like you said, we kind of sit back in our perfect little lives and take shots at all the big stupids and all the people that need to shut their fat mouths and all that. But we decided to, let's look at a positive story. Let's look at somebody who did something really cool this past week. And, in the Italian culture, in the really roots in the mob culture, when you're made, that means that you've been promoted. You've been moved up to elite status. You've been moved into an untouchable position. And so when you've got to do something, you got to qualify yourself. And so I'm just looking around the sports world. We want to look for guys that made themselves. And the one story that jumped out at me initially for a guy that qualified as being made really ultimately led into another similar story. So I'm going to start off with Memphis Grizzlies forward Quincy Poindexter. And, they were unceremonious.
Poindexter? Point or Pawn?
Oh, Pondexter, not Poindexter. Excuse me, Pondexter. So they were unceremoniously swept from the playoffs this year. And when the season was then over, he texted out, now that the season's over, I need to find a girlfriend. And so he asks, who won Miss Tennessee? Well, Miss Tennessee's 2012 winner, Chandler Lawson, replied to him via Twitter. And he kind of said, after a couple of exchanges, and I'm paraphrasing here, after a couple of exchanges, said like date with a question mark, and she was like, sure. So Quincy Pondexter, man, that was pretty tight, man. He reached out, he's like, who's Miss Tennessee? And she responded, he asked her out, and she agreed to go out with him. That was pretty cool. So I was like, all right, that was good. So he was kind of he was kind of the head of the list for the guy that was made for this week. But then I cracked open my Sports Illustrated. I came home from work. It was there on the counter. The wife brought it in from the mailbox. I went in to go take my George Brett. I opened up the Sports Illustrated, and on the scorecard, there was a nice little story there about a guy that asked out a supermodel to prom, and she went with him. Now, we've seen a few of these kind of stories before. There was the Marine girl that asked out Justin Timberlake, and there was the other guy that asked out Mila Kunis, and she went with him to like some military ball. So we've seen kind of stories similar to this. Well, on March 16th, and this is straight from Sports Illustrated last week, on March 16th, Jake Davidson, 17 years old, of Sherman Oaks, California, posted a video on YouTube asking Sports Illustrated swimsuit model Kate Upton, who's like the it girl right now, right? She's like the big hot model right now. Kate Upton to the prom. Well, she couldn't attend. Okay, Kate Upton couldn't make it. But also supermodel Nina Agdal stepped in. Now, Nina Agdal says that she'd never been to a prom before. She didn't know what the appropriate dress would be. She's from Denmark. She doesn't really even have a grasp on what our American proms are, but she agreed to go with Jake Davidson. So Jake Davidson of Sherman Oaks, California, went to the prom with a freaking SI swimsuit model. And so, and they had a great time. They had a lot of fun. He said they really didn't spend a lot of time inside the dance because there was so much media attention surrounding him. But I'm just thinking back to a 17-year-old little Murph from San Jose, California, and I'm thinking back to how amazing that would have been to have actually bring a supermodel to your prom. Oh, Jake Davidson, and for the Sports Degos, the initiate, the first ever, you are a made man on this show, and nobody can F with you from now on.
Jake Davidson, congratulations. You're one of the family. I love it, Murph. Love a new sound bite. Nothing better.
You're not shy of a sound bite.
I'm not shy of a sound bite. I make many all day long in the bathroom.
Hey-o.
So, Murph, this week we like to write articles on the Sports Degos once in a while.
You do a great job of it.
Once in a while, we like to put out an article out there. This week, we talked about LeBron James and Tim Duncan. It's fitting. It's the finals. They're playing each other. And the article was basically this. This was my thought process when I was writing it. You hear a lot about what James is. Don't get me wrong. He's one of the greats. He'll go down as one of the greats. But you hear a lot about how great he could be, right? Ever since he was playing in high school and AAU and traveling the country and all that stuff, you've heard a lot about, man, this guy's going to be this. He's going to be better than Jordan. He's going to break this record. He has the potential. He came into Cleveland, tore it up, took Cleveland Cavaliers to the finals. That in itself is a superhuman feat, right? Goes to Miami. Oh, we're going to win not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, 7, boisterous as ever, right? Talking all this junk, saying he's going to do this, saying he's going to do that. And then he doesn't his first year. Then he does it his second year. And we'll see what happens his third year in Miami and stuff. So you get a lot of hype around LeBron James. And it's warranted. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a LeBron hater. It's warranted. He's amazing. There are times when he's on the floor and it looks like Mike Ditka just intercepted a pass and he's running through a team of punters into the end zone and stuff, I mean, it's a man amongst boys out there sometimes for LeBron when he wants it, right? However, Tim Duncan has played since 1997, all with the same team. 16 years. He's a 14-time All-Star. He's been a part of 15 playoff runs. He's won league MVP back-to-back seasons, and he has 4 NBA championships. Why is this guy not talked about more as one of the greats? Is it because he's a center / power forward, early on? Is it because that position is not known to be flashy and to be the dominant one, Is it that position is not very loud or boisterous and stuff? My theory is that it's like when you're a young guy, right? When I was a young kid, when I was a young rebellious Raiders fan, right? Italian stuff, I got in a lot of trouble. I had a younger sister who did everything right. Yet the attention was always on me because I was in trouble. If you make the most noise, you draw the most attention. And so I wonder if that's what's happening with LeBron and Duncan. LeBron, media hype galore, yada, yada, yada. Duncan, quietly, almost robotically, goes about his business, wins championships, does the right thing, and yet you never really get praise. We're starting to get praise now. We're starting to see it in the media after, game 1 win and stuff like that. And even in the post-game conference, there was 2 telling things that happened. Number 1, Tim Duncan was asked, hey, you started out 0 for 5. Did you feel rusty? Did you do anything different to change your shots? Because after that, you shot really well. He says no. He says, I took 5 shots. I missed them. They were shots I normally make. They were shots I felt great. So I just kept shooting. Brilliant answer. What you'd expect. He's a professional. LeBron James gets asked a question about his productivity or something like that, and he says, I had 18 rebounds. That doesn't show lack of productivity. Or, I'm paraphrasing there, but he basically came across real smug, kind of arrogant, and it just is like, man, really? You're the face, you're the franchise of the NBA, and this is how you're going to react to a question like that? And, he lost the game, and maybe he was pissed or whatever, but the whole point, and this was my last statement here, says, my point is that as we watch a dynamic NBA Finals between 2 for sure future Hall of Famers, let us sit back and not bask in potential, but admire what has been and is great. If Duncan were to win the Finals this year, if the Spurs were to win, he would go down as a 5-time NBA champion. It's likely he's going to retire at the end of this year. What's his legacy going to be? Jordan has 6. Kobe has 6.
5.
Duncan would have 5 in this generation. You know what I'm saying? Would he be considered as one of the greats? And would we kick ourselves for not acknowledging that while he played? Or would we be looking back and saying, man, Duncan was great. Maybe we should have paid a little more attention.
Well, yes, absolutely. The answer to your question is that... Over there? I got some feedback coming in here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. The answer to your... Oh, man, it was Sonny. I'm getting bad feedback here. The answer to your question is should we look at him with the level of reverence that maybe we look at Kobe or that we are hoping to look at LeBron with? And I think the answer to that question is no, not at all. I think that he's way unheralded as far as his accomplishments go. But here's the thing about that, though, is that I think it's really resonant of the entire Spurs organization. I think that it also speaks to the lack of attention that Ginobili gets, that Parker gets, that they collectively get as, quote, the big three, that Greg Popovich gets, that there's a lot of things about the San Antonio Spurs, not only based on the fact that they play in San Antonio, Texas, but that they're kind of a quiet, grind you down type of basketball team. No, they don't necessarily garner the amount of attention that obviously the Heat or the Lakers or Jordan's Bulls would have. Now, speaking to the player specifically, here's something that I think is very, very interesting. When you look at Jordan, I mentioned it earlier in the show, and you could bring on Bill Russell, you can bring on Chamberlain, you can bring on Dr. J, you can bring on anybody you want. The bottom line is that Michael Jordan is the greatest postseason, regular season NBA basketball player ever, okay? The guy has 6 NBA championships. If it wasn't for the fact that he went to go play baseball for 2 years, he'd probably have 8 in a row, okay? He's got those 6 championships. He's got 6 NBA Finals MVPs, and he's got 5 regular season MVPs to go along with it. So the fact that he's got the Finals MVPs that could directly correlate with his amount of championships, and he has more championships than MVP trophies, that to me right there tells you what kind of a player Michael Jordan was. When we look at Kobe has 5 NBA championships, 2 Finals MVPs, and only 1 regular season MVP. Now, here's where I really want us to start taking note. Duncan has 4, potentially 5 this year, 3 Finals MVPs, 2 regular season MVPs. LeBron, 1 championship, 1 Finals MVP, and 4 regular season MVPs. That tells me, looking at the way these numbers work, LeBron, and I think it's evident when you look at the way that the Miami Heat have played so far this postseason, LeBron James does not elevate the players around him. And that ultimately is, to me, is what makes you a great player in any sport. Yes, can anybody have the athletic ability and the talent to succeed on their own accord? Can you, Peyton Manning, whatever, you name it, do you have the athletic ability to succeed and put up numbers and do all that stuff on your own? Yes. But do you have the ability that when it comes to the postseason, do you have the ability to make Parker, to make Ginobili, to make Steve Kerr, to make Dennis Rodman, to make whoever, you name it, to those players around you, Derek Fisher, those guys to elevate their game to contribute to the championships and to the overall success of the team? That is, I think, where there's a glaring difference between Tim Duncan and LeBron James, and really Kobe and Michael and LeBron James. That everybody wants to compare LeBron to all these great players, but to me, the numbers aren't there and the results aren't there nearly to support it. And you are absolutely right, and your article nailed it, that Tim Duncan has, did he benefit from the play of David Robinson early on in his career?
Oh, sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
There's no doubt there that Robinson was a mentor to him and carried him on to that early success. But since then, Tim Duncan has been the guy, and Tim Duncan's the guy that's carried this team, and everybody else around Tim Duncan have been better basketball players because of him. Where a guy like LeBron James, there is no reason that Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh are absolutely sucking this postseason and have sucked in the first game of the finals. He isn't making anybody else better. He's only performing himself. And for whatever reason, and I'm not going to try to pretend to be a super basketball analyst to be able to define what that reason is, but whatever it is, it ain't happening. And you put Michael Jordan on a team with Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade, and guess what? They're not losing the first round of the first game of the finals. So I think ultimately that's it. And I thought your article was fantastic.
Let me ask you a question. I think I would disagree maybe a little bit that LeBron James doesn't make his teammates better. He's always been maybe called an unselfish player. He has a lot of assists. It'd be interesting to look back and compare his assist ratios to Kobe. Obviously, he'll probably beat Kobe, but compare him to Jordan. See who had more assists, Kobe or Jordan. And is that a knock on the guy?
Though? But hold on. But does that?
No, it doesn't define
the fact that you're going to be a better distributor. Does that necessarily make the players around you on the court better? And that's where. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the fact that Jordan was a better motivator or a more iconic figure, so guys played harder with him on the court. I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, LeBron's missing that. He doesn't have that era or that aura about him or that it factor that Jordan did, that Kobe does, that Duncan does. Even quiet as Tim Duncan is, he's got that it factor.
Mm-hmm. Well, and here's the other thing. Jordan never lost to finals, and Duncan never lost to finals. LeBron's lost in the finals. And so, back to the whole premise. Kobe's lost in the finals. I just hope we don't miss out on how great Duncan has been. And whether this is his last year or not, whether they win the finals or LeBron wins it, I'm going to sit back and enjoy this guy and watch him a little closer this time because I've taken him for granted. He is quiet. You pay attention to the squeaky wheel, It's the squeaky wheel wherever you go that gets the most attention. And unfortunately,
there's no flash to him. He's not flying from the free throw line, dunking the basketball. And that's the other big difference between Kobe, Michael, and LeBron is that both of them, listen to me, all three of them were very high-profile scorers and flashy in their game. They demand attention. All three of those guys did or do demand attention to their game because there's a lot to it. It draws your eye. When they make an amazing play, you notice it. It's tangible. You can see it. You can feel the greatness of it. When Duncan posts up and turns around and hits a little turnaround from 4 feet, that's not very exciting, but does everything else leading up to that play enable his team to be more successful? And I think that's the big difference. And when we look at the of these four guys we're talking about, that to me, yes, you said it earlier. Is it because he's a center? Sure. And is that a dying position in the NBA? Yes. And he's not like Shaq. He's not a 330-pound guy that's throwing it down with, a lot of ferocity. You know what I mean? Even Shaq is even though his game wasn't so flashy, he was as a figure and as a personality and his size and all that. Duncan doesn't have any of that. Really, what's funny is that the biggest, most attention that we've paid to Tim Duncan all year long was him laughing at Dwight Howard for being an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it. That smirk on Duncan's face, like we loved that. And I'm with you. How many moments has Tim Duncan had like that? I don't know. We only paid attention to it not because it was Tim Duncan, because it was Dwight Howard. So shame on us.
And because it was out of character. It was out of character for Duncan because you never see him smile. And that was our point with that, is that you never see this guy smile even. He is more robotic and stoic than the freaking Kaneda kid, the spelling bee and stuff, It's and I think we're watching greatness, man. We're watching a guy who, especially if he wins 5, he has to be in the topic of conversation. Now, we always say, will LeBron be in it? Is he in it now? Duncan has an opportunity to be in it already. And I feel that maybe we've missed it. And that was it. So man, I'm looking forward to that game. Gosh, it feels like they haven't played forever, It feels like they should have played tonight.
Tomorrow, right?
Of course they're going to, tomorrow at 8. Of course they're going to push it back to tomorrow. All right, Murph. Anyway, we got to get the heck out of here. Appreciate all the time and effort and energy you put into the show. Remember, next week, the Raiders Repertoire will be a separate podcast. It'll be its own thing because that's what Raider Nation needs and deserves. And then next week will be all sports stuff. You can listen to the beer and the banter and the guy of the week. Shut your fat mouth. Big Stupid. Whopping Historical Weekly Sad Sack Made. And the article of the week. Murph. October 6th. Wapapalooza 13. Details are happening now. If you will be at the Chargers-Raiders game on October 6th and you want to eat some good Italian food, if you want to participate and bring some Italian food, we're going to be doing a tailgate. We're going to be doing a show, a pregame show, live on the air, taking comments from fans. We want to hear from you. That show will be primarily about Raider Nation. If you will be there, put it on your calendar. Wapapalooza 13, October 6th, at a parking space near you in Oakland, California. Murph, any last words before we go?
No, pay attention to sportsdegos.com, Twitter at the Sports Degos, Facebook / the Sports Degos. Lots more details to come. But yes, as you mentioned, October 6th versus the San Diego Chargers. We're going to be doing a live Raiders Repertoire. Expect to hear some of your favorite Sports Degos guests. They're live from the Oakland Coliseum from the O.co parking lot. Should be a lot of fun. Really excited about it. And we are official. It is going to happen. Wapapalooza 13. Glad to be back in the Dago Dungeon. Sonny, have a great night. Thanks for having me. Glad to hear that you're back and healthy again, and look forward to next week as we kick off the next era of the Sports Degos right here in the Dago Dungeon.
All right. Check out all the old podcasts, articles, everything at the Sports Degos on Twitter and the sportsdegos.com. The Sports Degos, all one word, DEGOS.com. And until then, like Pinky and the Brain and their conversations, take over the world.